table, dice still on the floor. Stories all been told.
For today's review, Cards on the Table, I'm just going to handle it a little bit differently. I'm going to go through my notes. I kept some copious notes on this, and I just wanted to go through it. First of all, of course, the title, Cards on the Table, is significant because the murder centers around an evening of bridge where there are two tables playing bridge. And the story involves the murder of Mr. Shaitana. And Mr. Shaitana is a collector, an art collector, and also he is very interested in murder. And he tells Poirot one time that he has collected a group of murderers who have gotten away with it. And so he invites these four people, these four supposed murderers, over, and invites four detective-type characters over, and then has them each sit down, the four supposed murderers and the four detectives, in separate rooms to play an evening of bridge. Mr. Shaitana sits by the fire in his large armchair. By the end of the night, it's been discovered that a very thin dagger has been pressed into his heart, and he's dead. So it's up to the table of detectives to figure out which one of these people did it. First of all, the title, Cards on the Table, of course, as I said, refers to the bridge game, also refers to the idea of transparency. You know, let's put our cards on the table. And in this case, it's not so much murderers confessing as it is these four detectives all bringing their information together, and they even use the term putting our cards on the table. However, we do have a couple of confessions that go on, so other people, other suspected murderers, they put their cards on the table, so to speak, and admit certain things. Sometimes they admit the truth, sometimes they're fabricating something. Right off the bat, there is a statement about colonialism, and we've got Shaitana, who is foreign. We don't really ever quite know his background, but let me just read a quote. "Every healthy Englishman who knew him longed earnestly and fervently to kick him. They said with a singular lack of originality, 'There's that damned Dago, Shaitana.' Their wives, daughters, sisters, aunts, mothers, and even grandmothers said, varying the idiom according to their generation, words to this effect: 'I know, my dear, of course he's too terrible, but so rich, and such marvelous parties, and he's always got something amusing and spiteful to tell you about people.' Whether Mr. Shaitana was an Argentine, or a Portuguese, or a Greek, or some other nationality rightly despised by the insular Briton, nobody knew." So there, Christie's even commenting on that kind of British colonialism and their mistrust of foreigners. So she is, even though some of her writings may come up showing that she herself has some racism that she has to deal with, she is noting it within the culture that she is writing. Let's talk about those recurring characters. First of all, we have Ariadne Oliver, who first appeared in Parker Pyne Investigates. You'll remember she wrote a short story, or kind of wrote a mystery for a discontented soldier, I believe. We also have Superintendent Battle, who first appeared in The Secret of Chimneys and came back in the Seven Dials mystery. Those are the Bundle Brent mysteries. He's kind of slow-moving but very wise, and he knows what people are up to. Then we have Colonel Race, who first appeared in The Man in the Brown Suit. So he's got probably the smallest part of these four, but we do see these characters. And an interesting thing about Colonel Race is that he's a character, when he's talking with the others, he brings up his own prejudice. He believes that one of the men at the table, Major Despard, could not have done it, and he said because he's a white man. And in this context, he's not talking about the culture of any of the other suspects at the table, because they are all Caucasian. but it's probably coming from that idea of kind of that statement that has been said from the South, "That's mighty white of you." It's a racial statement. He's white, so he's above this sort of behavior. And it's interesting that his name is Colonel Race, and he's the one probably showing the most racial prejudice in this story. We also have Ariadne Oliver further developed. She's really Christie's own, Christie making fun of herself. And in fact, the novel that she's working on is a novel that's going to be the title of a Christie novel from, I believe, the 1940s, The Body in the Library. So we have a definite link between Ariadne Oliver and Agatha Christie. And Ariadne works on her feminine intuition, and she's really very excited, and she's certain who. But she changes her mind with every chapter, and then she insists that she knew who it was all along when Poirot finally gets to the denouement of the story. We also have this idea of 4 suspects. We've got 4 people in a room, and until one of them is cleared, they're all under suspicion. You'll remember a similar plot in Christie's The 13 Problems. There's a story called The 4 Suspects. Interestingly enough, the plot of this mystery is outlined in the early part of the ABC mystery, or the ABC murders, where Poirot calls this kind of the ideal murder, where you have 4 people in a room, and there's a body, and one of them did it. And who did it? It's a neat, tidy, ideal type of murder for Poirot. So he's really in his element with this one. This novel is full of references not only to Christie's own work but to other works. At one point, Poirot brings up this. He quotes the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime, which is a quote of Sherlock Holmes from the short story Silver Blaze. And of course, we might know it better today from a 2003 novel by the same title by Mark Haddon about a boy who is trying to find out who killed the neighbor's dog. Now, one of the 4 suspects, Major Despard, it's interesting because he makes a statement that's rather racist as well. And it's interesting that Colonel Race was his staunchest defender throughout this novel as being someone who couldn't have done it. Because Major Despard talks about never forgetting a face. And he says, "I could never forget a face, not even a black man's." So he's making this kind of racial assumption that all black people look the same. So it's a very, very interesting. And yet this character turns out to be kind of a hero figure toward the end of the novel, jumping in the water to save a woman who's drowning. So we do have characters with inconsistencies. They can be brave on one hand and racist on the other, like Colonel Race and Despard. Very interesting stuff. There's an interesting concept that played out in one chapter in this novel that I really liked, and I call it atmospheric commentary, where we let the conditions surrounding the characters play not only into the mood, but offer an opinion on what's going on. And in this case, it's rather ironic. We have one of the young suspects, Miss Anne Meredith, and her roommate, Rhoda Dawes, are sitting and talking right after Poirot has come and talked to them. And Poirot is trying to find out about the past of these four suspects, and if there were any murders in their past that Shaitana might have found out about. So after Poirot leaves, Rhoda mentions to Anne, "Well, you didn't mention when you lived at this house for 2 months, and at that house a woman had been poisoned." And Anne says slowly, "I didn't think it counted. I was only there a few months, and there was no one to ask about me there. I can write and tell him if you think it matters, but I'm sure it doesn't. Let's leave it." "Right, if you say so." Rhoda rose and turned on the wireless. A raucous voice said, "You have just heard the Black Nubians play 'Why Do You Tell Me Lies, Baby?'" So here we have the radio even condemning the characters in here. Again, it's very interesting that the band playing is called the Black Nubians. Again, we have a mention of race. It seems to be something that just keeps playing out over and over again in Christie's works. The last reference that Christie makes to her own works is Murder on the Orient Express. Poirot reveals the solution to Murder on the Orient Express to Rhoda Dawes, and even shows her the dagger that Ratchet was killed with in that novel. And he quite unabashedly gives the solution. So if you have not read Murder on the Orient Express, you may want to read that before you read this, read Cards on the Table. Because of all of the fun Christie's having, referencing her own works, her other characters, bringing different worlds together, I have to give this one a 5 out of 5. I think it's a really strong novel, and it's got a lot of fun twists.